Okay, so we're back to our Indian. As usual, we speak on the Parsha of the week, and then we speak about ourselves. This is the Parsha and also the beginning of the Shmois. Surely you're familiar with what that brings in. The word Shmois means the names. And it's quite obvious that in the Torah there is a very big emphasis on the names. These names of the 12 Shvatim have been repeated in this order 3 times, I think. This is the 3rd time that it repeats it. And the first time is when they were all born. The second time is when they came to Mitzrayim. And the 3rd time is here in Pasha Shmois. And it clearly says, these are the names of the Shvatim. Rashi actually comments on this, that this shows that this is to tell us how significant they are. That Hashem mentions their names at every opportunity. The name, I want to discuss briefly the singing. The name, as we all know, is really something which is completely extraneous. Extraneous? External, outside. Extra. To the person. A person can live and be well without a name. Right? When you were born, did you have a name?
No.
You survived?
Baby.
It's true, we give a name as soon as possible, but the name is something which we give. It's an added. It's the person is not born with a name, which means a person is whole and complete and healthy without a name. But we give him a name. And when we give a name, it becomes so important and so significant and so real to the person. Right here. This given name becomes so real that, as a matter of fact, in Hasidus, it's explained that despite the fact that the name is just something external, extraneous, and yet it touches the person at his very core, not core, and the very essence, to the extent that sometimes a person is in faint, a person is in a coma. Everybody knows what that is? Should never know it. Sometimes everything else would fail, and you can bring him back by calling his name. By calling his name, even whispering his name. That kind of brings a person back. It seems to be relating to the person on a very significant and a very essential level. Yet the person as such, when he eats and drinks and sleeps and talks and learns and runs and fights and makes up, nothing to do with the name. So we'll come back to this. The next thing in the Parsha is already the planning of Parei to enslave the Jewish people. The Egyptians become frustrated with the Eden, and they plan to enslave them. And of course that occurs over a period of time, and they do get enslaved. And the way the Torah describes this enslavement, it says, "Vayavidu Mitzrayim as bnei Yisrael beforech," that Mitzrayim caused Eden to work beforech. They engaged them in a work that's called beforech. What is beforech? Beforech means very difficult work. But more precisely, and Rashi comments on this, beforech means mefarech. Mefarech means something that breaks something apart into little pieces. It shatters something. And it means that the forech means a kind of work that shatters the person. It doesn't just engage him in heavy work, it shatters the person. And he shatters him beguf and benefesh, physically and spiritually. And the Gemara says, what kind of work is it that shatters a person spiritually? Physically, you could say, okay, he works very hard. He can catch his breath. He doesn't have a moment to rest. What kind of work shatters a person spiritually? The truth is, we know that hard work is sometimes good for a person. Okay, on the contrary, it strengthens his spirit. There's a pasuk in Mishlei that says, Mesuko shnas ha'oived, that the sleep of a hard worker is sweet. He feels accomplished. He really put in work. He feels accomplished, and he has a sweet and calm sleep. What is this beforech? So, the definition of beforech is a work that is purposeless, aimless. Such endless. Aimless.
Oh, aimless.
Like aimless. And the word end in this case is like for any end, for any particular purpose. As for example, that you tell a worker to dig a ditch, and after he finishes digging the ditch, you tell him to fill it all up. Fill it back in. Now this kind of work, to dig a ditch and then fill it up, is just getting somebody to work without any purpose at all. Now, if we would project the Jewish people in Mitzrayim, they didn't care much about the Egyptians, right? They weren't their friends. So if they would dig a ditch, and the ditch would be used to plant a tree, or the ditch would be used to put in a foundation for a house, or whatever it is, so the Egyptians would be benefiting from it. The Yid, the Jew, would not rejoice from the fact that the Egyptian is benefiting from his work. Doesn't mean anything to him, because he doesn't really like the Egyptian too much. He's the one who makes him subservient, and he makes him and runs him down to the ground. And yet, it's called beforech, which means that despite the fact that he doesn't really want to benefit the Egyptian, the fact that his work went into nothing breaks him. And if it is used, it gives him a strength of inspiration, regardless of who uses it. Where is that? What is that nature? What is that? What's behind this principle, this spirit? Lahavdil, an animal. You go sometimes, you see people practicing horse riding. They have a little arena that's 100 feet by 100 feet, and the horse runs around and around and around and around and around and around. He runs with full spirit and full excitement, and nowhere. He doesn't complain. An animal doesn't care. Exactly. And a human being, even under the circumstances that he is working for this Egyptian tormentor, you know what tormentor means? Mm-hmm. Somebody who is causing him pain. And yet, just going back and forth and accomplishing nothing bothers him. Why does it bother him?
Does the horse know he's going around in circles?
I'm sorry?
Does the horse know what's going, like he's just going around and around?
He doesn't know anything. He's just going.
He doesn't know that, he just thinks he's just going, following the road.
He's not following anything. He's going where his rider is leading him. That's about it.
So he doesn't even know where he's going. He doesn't know too.
He's just doing his thing. It makes no difference. The horse running around the circle and a car running on the circle have identical emotional reaction. Does a car mind if it goes around in a circle? So doesn't the horse. Just doing his thing. I once explained an important thing. I spoke here about it. I don't know how many of you were here at the time. What's so funny?
I think it's interesting comparing the horse to the car.
Yeah, I mean, there's no difference. I explained a very interesting phenomenon that when a horse is dropped, it's called born, when the horse is first dropped, a half hour after it's dropped, it's on its feet. It's right up on its feet. They start jumping around, running. You know, it's a colt. It's called. You know, he has to be tamed and all, but basically he's running around. How long does it take for a human baby, lahablu, to be able to do the same thing?
A year.
A minimum of a year. A year, he begins to stand up, take a step and fall down. To jump, to run around, takes much longer. So what will one say? Hey, look at this. The horse is so much advanced to the human being. It takes him half an hour to learn what it takes a human being a year and a half. It's an amazing thing. What's the real story? What? I'm sorry? I'm sorry? That's right. You heard it. What's the real story? The real story is the horse is jumping up. It's all instinctive. The horse doesn't process his actions through his intellect. Doesn't know the difference between sitting and walking and jumping. Makes a difference. He does whatever is instinctive. For a human child to get up and walk, he studies the whole phenomenon. He watches and he sees what's going on, and he grows intellectually. It takes a year. The year is not to learn how to walk. The year is to make sense of this whole phenomenon of walking. And by the time he walks, it is his intellect that's carrying him. It's not his feet. It's completely different experience, different phenomenon. By the time he walks, he has developed intellectually to understand the difference between crawling and walking. And we see this further down the line, as a person grows, but he can do with his feet intricate movements are all completely controlled by his intellect. A person can develop, can dance in very intricate ways. That's because his feet are completely controlled by his intellect. If the feet were doing things instinctively, they would never learn this. They would come one step, one foot in front of the other at best. So, which means that this beforech, this union that you work, and your work goes to naught, to nothing, and this is disturbing, this is breaking the spirit, that is uniquely a human phenomenon. It's only for the human being. In olden days, there were mills. You know what a mill is? A mill is something that grinds grain, wheat, into flour. So the one way that they would activate this mill, a mill consisted of a sitting stone, and on top of that was a movable stone. Huge rocks, huge stones. And now you have to cause the stone to move in order to grind the wheat. So how do you make it move? There are different ways. There was a waterfall that would move the stones. And then there was another type of fall where it was animal driven. How was it animal driven? This top rock would be attached to a chain, and this chain was attached to some kind of a platform, a moving platform, like a moving platform, like a treadmill. And they would put a horse on this treadmill, and the horse would walk, so to speak, and the treadmill would, as a result, move by the walk of the horse. And then he would move this chain, and the chain would move the rock, and that's how the rock moved the mill. So the horse would be walked up on this treadmill, on this platform, and he would walk. And he had never complained, listen, come on, you're annoying me, I'm walking nowhere. It didn't bother him. As long as he had his hay to chew on, it didn't bother him at all. So the horse was a source of energy to move the treadmill rock, move the mill rock. Okay? And it didn't bother him. So this is something inherent in the human being. And again, I'm pointing out, it isn't that he wanted to benefit himself from this work or to benefit his friends from this work. He's working for the Egyptians. He doesn't really care to benefit anyone. The very fact that his labor goes to naught is something which breaks him to the point it breaks his spirit and breaks his body. This element is related to the principle I discussed before, that a person has a name. What is the significance of that? Huh?
Sorry, what it said initially, what again? Sweet, all the hard work here is sweet. Sweet. Oh, sweet. Shmois.
As I mentioned before, that a name, it's an amazing thing. A name can wake a person up, bring him out from a coma. What is a name? What is the function of a name? True, a person for himself does not need a name. What is the function of a name? Functional name is that he's referred to by other people by this name. If he becomes a man amongst men, he needs a name. A member of society, a member of the human race, so to speak. What makes him a member of the human race? His name. This is how he's referred to. This is how he's known. And this name, which is used just to refer to him, to call him by, to know who you're talking about, this name is of such tremendous significance to the person that you can wake him from a coma by calling his name. What does this tell us? This tells us that, yes, indeed, there is a whole person, and he has many faculties, starting from his seichel, from his intellect, and he has the faculty of the emotions, and then he has thought, speech, and deed, which you learned in Tanya, and he can have a lot of gifts, he can do a lot of things, talent and all that. What is the real essence of the person that describes what is a human being? The real essence of a person is that he has a name. That he is a man amongst men. Not what he is unto himself. That he has a mission, a shlichus, that he has a function, he has a place in the world. That is the man. Not what he is unto himself. If you tell a person is in a coma, you say, hey, come eat a little cholent.
I would jump.
You're unique.
Special.
Right? It won't wake him. Sometimes we can wake a person from a coma by giving him a sharp smell. Sharp smell that hits deep. But sometimes even that doesn't help. And the name can wake him up even from that deep slumber. Because the name is more descriptive and touches him deeper and is more real to him than any of those experiences. It's an amazing thing. You can give him anything that will touch him as deeply as the name. And in fact, a person appreciates being called by his name. You say, hey, you. Okay, you're talking to me. But hey, you is not complimentary to a person. Even in homes, parents and children, parents can hug their children, can kiss their children. Everybody should have their own kids to make up for all the things that they miss themselves. But being called by name and calling children by name is the biggest endearment that there is. That gives a child a real presence in the parent's heart and the parent's mind. That's referring to the real person. And this is what the Torah is saying. Eile Shmois Bnei Yisrael. Bnei Yisrael are very important and they're great people. But the primary thing is they are referred to by name. Because they have a real place in the world. They're not just visitors over here. They are the building block of the world. Therefore, they have individual names. And it's not just Bnei Yisrael, Jewish people, name by name, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and so forth. In the Pashas Vayigash, earlier you learned that the Torah goes through and names all 70 by name. This is the core, this is the original beginning of the Jewish people. From where it started, all 70 are mentioned by name. This name element, as we explained, is describing the place of a person in the world and saying that the place of a person in the world, that is the real person. His function and his purpose. This is coming to the surface in this beforech element, in this purposeless and aimless work. He can engage his body and work very hard. He gets tired. That's not the end of the world. That does not destroy the person. That makes him tired. That's all. He would rather not be abused, rather not be given work that is beyond his capacity. And it hurts him, but that's the extent of it. It doesn't destroy the person. But the forech, to do any kind of work and being forced to do the work without aim, without purpose, and then destroy his own work, this is something which he cannot tolerate. Because this destroys the very essence of what a person is. A person is a real presence in the world. And his essence is to accomplish and to build the world. So if he has to destroy his own work, this is the most disturbing and devastating to the spirit of man. Okay. So this is the principle that we're seeing over here. From Eile Shmois B'nai Yisrael, and right in there it says before, if they didn't have names, if they were not of that caliber, that a name is significant, then there would be no such thing as before. In other words, if they didn't have this human quality, that they are referred to by name, then there would be such thing as before. So you work hard and you go on sleeping sweetly. Having pointed this out, we ought to reflect on this, each one individually and together. What does this mean to every individual person? I mentioned many times that when one of us, when you learn something and it comes hard, you don't understand what you're learning. And then you work hard and you dig in, you ask and you labor, and finally you break through and you do understand it. There's a tremendous rewarding feeling in accomplishing this. breaking through and digging through until you understand something that just yesterday you couldn't understand, or half a year ago you couldn't understand. It's a tremendously rewarding feeling. But really, it's much more than a rewarding feeling of being able to understand. There is an accomplishment involved. The accomplishment of having successfully removed the obstacle for yourself to be able to understand this. It's a whole process. I can explain the reason that something comes there that you can't understand something, and then you open up, it opens up and you understand it. This is all due to real obstacles, to what's called Helen Vehester, to the fact that the real pure holy thought of Torah is being obstructed, concealed within the klipa. For instance, I want to give you a very simple illustration for today's discussion. This union of working and then destroying what you did. What would any one of you, without this discussion that we had, how would you explain this phenomenon? What would be the first thought?
Where the person
Yeah.
broken.
Because nothing is getting accomplished.
So what does he care?
It's sad.
Why is it so difficult for him? What is affected by it?
His ego.
His ego,
Yeah.
his gaiva, right? Wouldn't that be the first reaction? Gaiva, a big deal. So don't be such a bal gaiva, right? Someone told me that in the army, actually, they use this method to remove to make a soldier that he shouldn't have any gaiva, and he should be obedient to his superior. Because in the army you have to be obedient on the second, and if you're not obedient second, you can put yourself and the entire battalion in danger. You have to respond to the commander instantaneously, because you are under fire. And if you don't move in the right direction, as soon as you're told, you're in danger, and you can endanger the whole platoon and lose the war as a result. I mean, everything else can happen. So in order to train a soldier that he knows that when his sergeant says to him, move, he moves. He doesn't ask any questions.
Can you elaborate more how what to do with your learning, how that affects your ego when you don't feel you accomplish something?
No, I'm saying our first thought would be that it affects our ego, because this is the world we live in. And I'm explaining that when you look into the Torah and you see that this is not an ego element. The ego element is because we live in the world, and it's covering up the truth of the neshama. And it's not, in truth, it's not ego. It's something which touches much deeper than the ego. Ego, we say, it's not such a commendable thing. You should, every person has to have a little bit of an ego, but not too much. You can fight with him, but not too long. You could stay 5 years old, but not for too long. So the ego is it's something that you, on the contrary, you want to control the ego, the gaiva. Okay, Chassidus says you have to be the beetle. That's the only way that you open up your mind and to understand things. But this reality, this way of looking at it, this covers or hides the real thing. This hides the real thing. The real thing of that really what it touches is really the nefesh, the human being himself. The fact that he has a name is the real essence of the person that's hurt. Vareches haguf ve'anefesh, it shatters the goof, the body, and shatters the nefesh. So the same is true. This element that when you have a difficulty to understand a piece of Gemara, the reason it's difficult to understand a piece of Gemara is because the thought that it comes out in the Gemara is not based on worldly principles. It's not based on ego. It's based on a godly principle. And that is challenging. We don't really understand things that way. What Gemara are you learning right now? Psachim. Okay. You learned about beetle of chametz?
Yeah. Multiplication.
Beetle. Okay. That if you battle the chametz, what happens to it? It becomes dust. Do you all understand that? It makes sense to you? Honestly now.
No. My ego doesn't understand.
No, not your ego. Your ego understands it. Oh, yeah, sure, I guess the answer.
It becomes like dust. It becomes dust mamish, it becomes like dust.
Spiritual sense.
It comes like this. It's not chametz.
A spiritual sense.
It's not chametz. Yeah. It's not chametz. You're not over and baliron balimats.
It's not enough for us.
So, how is that happening? What?
Why is it so hard to understand when it becomes like dust?
So hard.
Okay. Because it is chametz, it's not dust.
It doesn't become dust, it becomes like dust.
Well, how does it become like dust if it is chametz?
To you.
It's not literal. It's not literal.
Okay, so how do you understand? How do you explain it?
So we consider it as dust to us.
Worthless, it becomes worthless. Dust is worthless. In your eyes,
You're considering it as its content.
consider it as worthless to you.
So, is this something that you can really relate to as a fact, or you're saying it's a way out of the predicament, so to speak? You can explain it. Is it a fact? I mean, the Torah is very literal. So this is chametz. Chametz is isha kodesh. Then you say, oh, this chametz, this is dust. How does it become dust? Like dust. Let me explain to you a little bit more inside this. Before you eat, you make a bracha. Right? You say, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam beirei pri ha'etz.
Oh man.
Right? We create beirei pri ha'etz, create the fruit of the tree. Now, this fruit, before you make a bracha, is sitting on the table. Then you pick it up in your hand. Is it being created or is it there in your hand? It's in your hand, right? What is saying beirei pri ha'etz? It's in your hand.
Hashem created.
So you say Bora pri ha'etz. At best you can say one who created. Bora pri ha'etz is creating the fruit of the tree. And what's the point?
It's constantly being recreated.
How do you make it? Is that your experience? And make a bracha has to be your experience. It has to be reality. This is not just theoretical things. Right? What did you making a bracha? Beirei pri ha'etz. How is he creating? Where do you experience this fact that he creates it?
You're acquiring it when you say the bracha. You're
It's right here on your table.
right.
Before you even sit down. How are you acquiring it?
You're asking Hashem's permission to eat it. This is coming into your possession.
It's right there. Whose possession is it?
It's in yours.
I mean, I'm talking, real in our experience. He doesn't want to listen to me. So let us understand this a little bit from an insider's perspective. The human being and lahava the animal. Two very different worlds. They have to really fully become aware of this. It's different worlds. The animals eat the fruit from the tree because it grows on the ground. They find it and they eat it because it's edible. They eat it. The human being, he has a name. He is a real person here. He's a king. He's a prince. He has to go to the ground and eat fruit from the tree. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. You're the same, you see, like an animal. Scavenger. You know what a scavenger is?
Yeah.
You know what a scavenger is? A scavenger is somebody who goes into the garbage pail and picks out whatever is edible and eats it. Would you like to do that? The fruit from the tree. The tree is not producing fruit for you to eat. The tree is growing fruit for whatever reason it is, and this fruit is going to fall down to the ground and rot and become part of the ground, and then again grow again. Is that what we eat? You know what I'm saying? Refuse. You know what refuse means? That which the tree refuses, throws away. That's what we eat. Fruit grows, the tree grows it, and it falls down, and then we go and pick it out, and we eat. The same as lahandle, all other creatures in the world. That's not what is actually taking place. The reason we are eating the fruit from the tree is because Adam Arishin, when he was first created, was told by Hashem that I made fruit for you to eat. I didn't make fruit for the animal. This is two different worlds. But for you, I made fruit to eat. This is for you to eat. In other words, this fruit was not just made fruit. It grew. And now I come and I steal it from the tree and I eat it. It's being presented to us by the Meibashten for food. When we make a bracha, we are acknowledging this union. We are bringing this to life. And we're saying, this what we're going to eat now is not fruit that belongs to the tree. It is fruit that comes to us, that Hashem gives to us to eat through the tree. Boire pri hoetz. The tree is only a means for Hashem bringing us the fruit for us to eat. But we're reading it not from the tree, we're reading from Hashem's hand. That's what the bracha is about.
All the brachas?
All the brachas, yeah. All brichas amenim, that's what it is. Because Hashem created it for that purpose. For us to benefit from it. Let's say someone goes and steals something, steals food. And then he writes a thank you note to the owner of that food. Says, thank you for having this food that I was able to steal it. Right? Doesn't make any sense at all, right? So when we eat fruit from the tree and we're thanking Hashem for this fruit, it's not we came there and we take the fruit. No, Hashem gave it to us. And that's what we're thinking about. Hashem created the fruit intentionally for us to eat, and then it was prepared, and now it's on our table, and we're reading it from Hashem's hand. So that anything that is edible, anything that comes to human usage, as food, for instance, is something that is intentionally made for the human being to eat. It's not an independent entity. It's not fruit independently, and then the human being eats. The human being eats only when it is made intentionally for him to eat. So therefore, when you have chometz, what is this chometz? What makes the chometz chometz? It's not it's edible. It's made for you to eat.
It's not made for us to eat anymore, it's dust.
As was me.
It's not made for us to eat anymore, it's dust.
It's made for you to eat. That's what makes the chometz chometz. So therefore it is in your jurisdiction. It is within your prerogative to say, yes, this is for me to eat or not. And if it's not for you to eat, then it is dust. It belongs to the earth. I don't need dust. I'm not a scavenger. If I refuse to relate to it, then it is dust. So, to understand this type of a concept, to see that the world really is a godly world, and that we are constant, we human beings particularly, are in constant, so to speak, contact, and everything that we benefit from the world is directly from the Meivish. That takes a lot of clarification, cleaning up one's own inclination, one's own perspective, perception of things. And it's bringing the human quality into the world. It's a real accomplishment. It changes the world. Every human being, every Yid is on a mission to change his little world, his part, to illuminate his part of the world. And nothing is repetitive. You know, I did it yesterday, so I'll do it today. It's not every day. Every day you have to go. The cleaning up and the elevating is a notch more, notch higher. You may not be sensitive enough to see it, but that's the way it is. Just as if you read the same words, you say Ashrei, right? Everybody knows Ashrei by heart, I'm sure, right? You didn't sit down to study Ashrei, but you said Ashrei so many times it became so fluent in your mouth. Just as it becomes fluency in your mouth, there's fluency in your intellect as well. There are things that make sense to you more easily, and more deeply, more clearly. A human being, the Torah was given to us. And Torah was not given to us just to be robots, you know. Do this, do this, do this. It's not meant that way. It's meant every day to make a decision on putting on tefillin, because it says in the Torah, put on tefillin. And that decision on a daily basis has significance. We are aware of it, and we are experiencing it. And it brings out new light from our soul. And it brings new light into the world.
So, Rabbi Paltiel,
Yes,
we
sir.
went from doing work of no importance to work of importance then, when Hashem took us out.
Oh. Yes, of course. But I mean, at that point when Hashem took us out and gave us a Torah, then we came to full recognition of what a name, of what a Yid is. Maybe we'll talk about it as time comes, as we'll come to it. Every Yid, there were 600,000 Yidden present at Matan Torah, and it says that this is the number that needed to be at Matan Torah. If not, the Torah couldn't be given.
What's so significant?
Excuse me?
What's so significant about 600,000?
I don't know. That's what the Medrash says. If they were missing any 600,000, the Torah couldn't be given. Simply speaking, the Torah is huge, and it has huge ramifications, and it has to be accepted by the entire Jewish people, by 600,000, in order to receive the whole Torah into the world.
There were more than 600,000.
600,000, everyone was 600,000 and some, right?
Levine's now
And there are more things than that one that you and I don't know.
Sure.
Okay. At least I
Right.
have to admit.
That's all we need, Mashiach.
All right. So I just want to conclude with the with the message, with the important point in this. Each one of us, every Yid, and you're talking about here, each one of us has to recognize the central meaning of us being here, of us being in the world, of us being Eden, of us being in Yeshiva. and the future of our lives. This is not an ego trip. We come to learn and we become lumdim hopefully and become, knowledgeable. It's not an ego trip. This is Shmois Bnei Yisrael. This is part of this is the godly mission that we have. And with Hashem's help, when you grow out of this and go to the next stage, in Hashem, you get married, you build a home, this is not an ego trip. This is a real presence of that is deeper than anything that we do.
It's a mission. It's a mission.
Excuse me?
It's a mission.
It's a godly mission. Let us not, God forbid, forfeit opportunity. Use our time. Use our time and feel the full impact and joy and the opportunity and the blessing of having this, what we have. And be only encouraging to ourselves and encouraging to everyone else. And on the contrary, the less ego we have, the truer our relationship to Torah is. The opposite. Should be b'atzlocha, everyone in their own way, in their own strengths. Everything that he does counts. And every quality that Hashem blessed each one of us, we must utilize, every good quality. It's not meant to be wasted. Okay. Hatzlacha.